So last week began our homily series, which is focused on forming our consciences as voters. It is our responsibility as Catholics to vote in such a way that it advances the common good. And in order to do that, we need a Christian perspective, a Christian worldview, guided by church teaching so that we see as God sees and vote accordingly. And if you missed last week, all of our Sunday homilies are posted on YouTube. But today we are focusing on the dignity of human life. Because each and every person, whether just conceived or dying on their deathbed, whether Christian or pagan, is created in the image and likeness of God. We are created with the inherent ability to know and love God and to enter into eternal life with Him. And because of this, every single person has infinite dignity and value. Just like a coin has a prescribed value based on what it's made out of and what is stamped upon it, each of us has infinite dignity and value because we are made for eternity and we are stamped, if you will, with the image and likeness of God. Now, this dignity that we share shapes and informs our view of the common good, because it's the common good of what or of whom? It's the good of each individual within our society. And when each individual in society has infinite dignity and value, that has to shape our understanding and be the lens through which we see when we make decisions that affect society. And the whole of church teaching sees through this lens. Because why did God reveal Himself through the Old Testament? Why did God become man? Why did God die for us? It's because we matter to Him. We're precious to Him. We are worth the cross to Him. And it's not just as a whole. It's each of us, each life. God sees every person through the lens of the cross. He loves each person that much. And so that's how God sees every person. That's how the church sees every person. And that's how we need to see every person. We have to see each person with the love that led God to die on the cross for these people. We need to be looking through the lens of the cross as we vote. Now, when we see everyone with the dignity that is theirs, the offenses against that dignity become very clear. There's racism, poverty, human trafficking, migrant injustices, oppression of the poor, sexual abuse, slavery. And these are all grave offenses against the dignity of these people who God died to save. But there are offenses that are even more gravely against human dignity. Those are the offenses against the right to life. And looking through the lens of the cross, the single most important foundational right that we need to promote and protect by voting is the right to life. Everyone has this right. It's inherent to our human dignity. And St. John Paul taught very clearly that acknowledging the personal dignity of every human being demands the respect, the defense, and the promotion of the rights of the human person. It is a question of inherent, universal, and inviolable rights. There is no one, no individual, no group, no authority, or no state that can change, let alone eliminate them, because such rights find their source in God Himself. So everyone has the right to life. This is reality. This is truth. It's part of who we are. It's what we all deserve. But the question is whether or not the state or the society recognizes, defends, and promotes this right. The right to life used to be very foundational to our country. The Declaration of Independence itself recognizes this God-given right when it says, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." This foundational right was what our country was built upon for so many years. But today, our country does not protect this right. We are without a foundation. What if we took your house, we lifted it up, we removed the foundation, and we put your house back down? What would happen? It would sink and settle and twist and fall apart. And that's what's happening to our country. That's what we're seeing. The right to life has to be the foundation of our country, and thus the foundation of how we vote. There are many other important structural rights, and these rights might be the walls or the roof of the house, if we continue with this analogy. But without the right to life as the foundation, the other very important and necessary rights are undercut. They are rendered futile. And St. John Paul II makes this point. He says, "Disregard for the right to life precisely because it leads to the killing of the person whom society exists to serve, is what most directly conflicts with the possibility of achieving the common good. And he continues, only respect for life can be the foundation and the guarantee of the most precious and essential goods of society, such as democracy and peace. There can be no true democracy without a recognition of every person's dignity and without respect for his or her rights. Nor can there be true peace unless life is defended and promoted. Pope Francis makes the same point. He said to the bishops, if we fail to protect life, no other rights matter. What good is the right to free speech or even the freedom of religion if you aren't alive to exercise it? It's as simple as that. There are many offenses against the right to life. There's murder, war, euthanasia, suicide, to name a few. But there is no greater offense against life than abortion. The intentional killing of an innocent, unborn child. This is the most vulnerable population on earth, and our brothers and sisters in the womb have no way of defending themselves. They have no voice to protest. Yet over 1 million of them died in our country alone last year because of abortion. And that's after Roe v. Wade was overturned the previous year. And the number continues to rise, especially in our state, after the passage of Proposal 3. I'm not quite sure if this 1 million number, includes chemical abortions, which is when pills are given to mothers who are early on in their pregnancy that will kill the child. But I highly doubt this number, this 1 million, includes abortions that occur every day through contraceptive methods like Plan B that are advertised to prevent conception, but very often kill a child after he or she is conceived in the womb. 1 million deaths a year is over 2,700 deaths per day in America. Do you know how many deaths per day there were for Americans in World War II? Just 200. There's 2,700 deaths per day through abortion this year, and there's 200 per day from all of World War II. That's 13 times, abortion is killing Americans 13 times faster than World War II did. This is the scale of destruction of human life that we're talking about. And it's easy not to notice. We never see them. We never hear their cries. But because of the scale of destruction that abortion causes, and because of the vulnerability of this population, the U.S. bishops have reaffirmed this year that abortion is the preeminent priority in voting as Catholics. It has to be our top priority. It doesn't mean it's the only priority, because as Father Matthias pointed out last week, we are not one-issue voters. We fight for the rights of those who experience poverty, human trafficking, euthanasia, racism, migrant and economic injustices, and we have to fight for those. Those are very important rights to fight for. But the difference between them is that we can disagree on the best way to help the poor or to stop human trafficking or to help migrants seeking asylum in our country. But we cannot disagree on the morality of right-to-life issues. None of these other issues are as fundamental and foundational as the right to life is, especially this issue of abortion. And there are lies going around that say without legalized abortion, women will not be able to receive necessary health care, that they will be forced to continue with dangerous pregnancies at the cost of their own lives, and that doctors will not be allowed to help them. These are lies. Abortions are never necessary health care. They're not health care in the first place. There are no laws that would prevent necessary health care for women and mothers in danger. And necessary medical procedures that save the life of the mother are not abortions in the first place when the procedure indirectly and unintentionally leads to the death of the child. The Church supports women in these dangerous pregnancies, and the Church supports health care. But the Church does not support the intentional killing of innocent life. The Church is so adamant about the gravity of abortion, the intentional killing of the unborn child, that it says, if a Catholic were to deliberately vote for a candidate precisely because of that candidate's permissive stand on abortion, he would be guilty of formal cooperation with evil and so unworthy to present himself for Holy Communion. It's important to point out that the church wants us to receive Holy Communion. Okay, it's a sign of the unity that we share with Christ and his church. But if a Catholic were to vote for a candidate because the candidate supports abortion, he or she would have separated themselves from Christ and his church. And so receiving communion in that state would be a contradiction to the very unity that Holy Communion symbolizes. Now there's another question. Could a Catholic vote for a candidate who is actively promoting greater access to abortion in order to support their other policies and not abortion? And the answer to that is, in a theoretical world, yes, but only if the reasons for voting for that candidate are proportionate to the evil that could be done through the candidate's stance on abortion, and that there are no better candidates available. But practically, in the world we live in, are there proportionate reasons available? Personally, I don't think so. Not with the scale of destruction that abortion causes, and not when there are candidates who are more pro-life to choose from. And to be clear, to my knowledge, there are exactly 0 candidates that conform perfectly to Catholic teaching, especially presidential candidates. And for this reason, Pope Francis has encouraged us as Catholics to vote for the lesser evil, the candidate that deviates less from Catholic teaching. So pray with these questions before voting. Which candidates respect the infinite dignity of all people? Which candidates respect the inherent right to life that we all deserve? Which candidate is the lesser evil that is most in conformity with Catholic teaching? We look through the lens of the cross at our brothers and sisters who are dying in the womb. But we also must look through the lens of the cross at those who choose abortion. Because many of them do not know that they are killing someone. Most of them, the media and schools now, unfortunately, tell them that these children aren't children at all, that they're not people, that they're just a clump of cells, and that life does not begin at conception. And these are the lies that people are making life and death decisions upon. And those who do know that they are killing a person in the womb are often under a great amount of stress and pressure. But let me be clear, there is no amount of stress or pressure that makes this right. There is never an adequate reason to intentionally kill an unborn child. But we have to love the people who made this mistake just as much as we love the people who die from it. And if you have made this mistake, Jesus looks upon you with nothing but love. He sees you from the cross, where he poured out his blood to redeem you, to set you free. And your sin, your guilt, your mistake is nothing compared to the blood that he poured out for you. And if you allow it, your sins will be wiped away in an instant. Because that's what he wants. He doesn't want to condemn you. He wants to free you. He wants you to let him love you there, in that place of guilt and shame. In our first reading, God says through the prophet Isaiah, "Through his sufferings, my servant shall justify many, and your guilt he shall bear." Jesus already bore your guilt so that you don't have to. So don't carry it around any longer. Let him love you there. And when you allow him to do this, and you experience the freedom God's mercy brings, that's when you fight for life, so that fewer children perish and fewer mothers and fathers feel the weight and the pain and the guilt that you did. Our brothers and sisters are dying in the womb. Let us not forget them. They don't have a voice, but we do. So let us use our vote as a voice to protect those who cannot protect themselves.